So the first thing you do is what? Say, okay, let's do something revolutionary. Let's match our staffing to our enrollment. Now let me give you a little secret here that might not be readily apparent. Your enrollment's pretty stable here over time. This is not rocket science. So if you walk in the school business office in August, you should hear the business office not talking about how many people are going to place in what building the next week, but what? What their staffing is going to look like in 2014. That's what planning is about. That's how you make these numbers match. And that planning targets your resources. You get to put them where you need them. Next thing is you got to pick a track. You got to decide, am I spending money on the program or am I reducing the compensation on the program? But once I decide, what do I have to do? Stay with it. This is like my puppy. Shall I go outside or pee on the floor? I mean, look at instruction. Oh, let's spend a lot of money. Oh, let's not increase it much. Oh, let's decrease it. Oh, heck, let's put it back up. Does that make any sense? No. If I want to increase instruction, that bar should be up. If I want to decrease it, the bar should be consistently down. But it shouldn't be like this. Third step. Determine how connected resource allocation practices are with core educational strategies. I'm going to keep saying this. Core educational strategies are important to what? Student outcomes, you know, and we're sort of here for that. First is the district's budget is intended to be a financial plan designed to use public resources to implement public policy. I'm going to suggest to you that a budget that simply has said, we're broke and what are you going to do about it, is not this design. A budget that shows you how you're going to use public money to implement public policy would be a program budget that would connect those dots I was talking about. The dollars to the strategies to the outcomes. That's the kind of budget we should insist on. Is it easy? No. Is it productive? Yes. The other kind of budget, I used to kind of throw it together and say, oh my God, we're broke, is really easy, but not particularly productive. Budget error is a percent of surplus. Here's what I mean by that. The district adopts a budget. They finalize that budget. They re-adopt the budget. And then the auditors come in because they close the books, okay? We figure out what they actually spent. So, the district underestimated the surplus by about 35%, by about 20%. Then last year they overestimated it because apparently they weren't paying attention. Can you plan when you do this? No. No. Here's the available revenues for program as a result, not available for program as a result of budget error. When you get it wrong, it's not a good thing. Even if it's only $15,000. I don't worry much about that, but here's the deal. The problem is that you get to a school board meeting at the end of the year and they congratulate the budget manager. Congratulations, you have $2 million more than you thought you were going to have. Isn't that great? Here's the problem with that. If they had acknowledged that $2 million when the school year started, what could they have done? Spend it on kids. Because you can't say to that third grader, oh my bad, come on back. Let me give you all of those experiences you missed. That field trip you couldn't take. That program that was cut. Because we couldn't get the budget numbers right. That's the problem. Nobody should be congratulated for being wrong with a budget. Because you use a budget to make decisions about education. I just took the budget error for the last 3 years. Just so you know what it would have purchased. It's kind of fun. It had purchased 1,800 computers, 352,000 boxes of Kleenex. You'd never have to ask a parent to bring Kleenex again forever. 10 million pencils, You give a kid a pencil a day and for, I don't know, the next 50 years. More seriously, 15,000 textbooks, 1,650 full class field trips. Or you could have employed 16 teachers. That's just the budget error. That's just how much we got wrong. And we celebrate it. That's the perversity. If you cannot accurately budget, you cannot what? Effectively allocate your resources. It's really, you know that from home. You know? I get that driven into me all the time. Why didn't you write down the money you took out of the ATM? I mean, you know, same kind of thing. We know that. But we need to insist on it. Here's the real bottom line. At some point, the desire to conserve scarce tax dollars, which is all you hear about. All you hear about is, oh my God, we gotta not spend money. Needs to translate into doing something that will control the future. We need to do that. We need to plan. We need to control the future. That's why this district has a deficit. And at the same time, enhance the district's educational outcomes. It's not that your educational outcomes are terrible. They're not. But here's what we know. When I graduated from high school, right about the time that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, the people that I had to compete with were the people in my own community, or maybe I got aggressive in the state of Michigan. The kids who graduated from high school in West Bloomfield this past spring have to compete with kids from San Diego, Seattle, and Singapore, and they don't get to choose. So if we're not constantly enhancing the program, we're losing ground. But the only way we can do that is to plan how we use our resources. And so those two things fit together. You can't get there by chasing rainbows. Most cheap deals are expensive down the road. Has anybody in here ever been on a bargaining team in West Bloomfield? Anybody? Okay. Have you been on more than one, like 2 or 3 or 4? Have you experienced that every time you go to the bargaining table, they want to talk about insurance? You want to make cuts in insurance? Changes in insurance? Have you done that? Okay. And the next time you bargain, what do they want to do? More cuts, more changes. Albert Einstein said what? The definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. Let me suggest to you that that track is not working. If it were, they wouldn't be constantly coming back and asking for more, because what they proved is that's not their problem. If that were their problem, the first time you made a change, it would have solved it. They have probably never come to the bargaining table and said, let's talk about how we can cut back on our non-educational expenditures. That is their problem, and they don't want to talk about it. You can't chase rainbows. I learned this in 15 years in the private sector. You know, it just doesn't work. It costs you more when you get done. And I'll guarantee you that's what's happening here. The only way you can get there is by planning ahead. This district has a technical fund surplus deficit that they can work their way out of if they use their resources wisely, and that doesn't mean cut your programs. But what they mostly have is a planning deficit. Is a failure to plan, and that failure to plan and say what's the highest best use of this tax dollar is what's got them in the hole they're in right now. You didn't do it. And that's what they need to start doing, is planning. Plan ahead. It's that simple. If they don't, you're going to see the same pattern over and over again. Until eventually what happens? They become non-competitive and people decide to do what? Go other places. Yeah. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I'll be happy to do questions from somebody.